For more than 50 years, Micky Dolenz has been in the spotlight as a member of the Monkees. Here's my chat with Micky about the recent success of the band's Good Times album, how he almost became the Fonz, missing Davy Jones, and more. Your voice doesn't appear to have aged at all in 50 years. How do you manage that?
I have a voice in an attic getting older. Up in the attic. The voice of Dorian Gray. I think it has to do with a lot of things. A lot of it is probably genetics. Your vocal cords are little muscles, and some people are built with a golfer's physique, shall we say, and other people, with, I guess, a singer's voice, tubes. My mother sang, and my father did too, so I think there's probably something genetically, about it. But also it's taking care and practicing and warming up. When I started doing musicals a decade or two ago, Broadway musicals, I realized I really had to get serious about protecting my voice and training and warming up like you would warm up for a sport. So, you wouldn't go out and play a game of singles tennis in a tournament without warming up and practicing and stretching and all that. So I think it's a combination of all those things.
You've been at it for a while, is there a particular Monkees song that's still difficult now to get right live?
Oh, no, not by now. I've done them so many times. I mean, some of them are a little more demanding than others. I do all the songs still in the original keys. A song like Pleasant Valley Sunday. At the end of that, it has a D above C, and I have to prepare for it. I gotta do my warm ups, and I got to be careful, and I got to take care of myself, and not see. The worst thing you can do is sing on bad chords. If like you have the flu or a cold or something, and your vocal cords have been inflamed or damaged or something, then you mustn't sing at all. And a song like Pleasant Valley, is probably one of the tougher ones because I still do it in the original key. And like I say, at the end of that, there's a D above C. But a lot of the other songs are not as difficult to sing, and they're in lower keys or don't have quite the same range.
You started off very young as an actor, and after you became famous as a Monkee, as an actor and a musician, you auditioned to play the role of the Fonz on Happy Days. What do you remember about that experience?
I do remember being up for the show, and I was down to me and Henry. Henry we became friends years later, and Henry says he remembers, and he told me, he said, when he walked in the room and I was there, he said, "Oh crap, I'll never get this. Micky Dolenz is here."
More recently, last year's Good Times was well received. It sold well. I'm curious, what's the most rewarding part of that recent success after all these years?
Well, it was just incredible. It's like I've always felt blessed to have been part of the Monkees project from the beginning, and no more so than this last year. We just got lucky, like the first time around. You surround yourself with talented people, and you work hard, and you just hope that it all kind of comes together. And like the original producers of the TV show, one of them, when asked once, what did he think the secret to the success was, he says, "No secret. We just caught lightning in a bottle." And I think that's what happened. And like last year, we had been talking about what we were going to do for the 50th anniversary. And, the touring was mentioned and a record and the TV and this and that. And simultaneously, we found these unfinished tracks from the 60s, songs that had clearly been intended to be released eventually, but just never got around to it. There was so much material that was being recorded. But there was one song by Carole King and another one by Neil Diamond, and with Davy's vocal on it, and then another one by Harry Nilsson, my dear friend, that was intended for me to eventually sing. It was him on piano and doing the scratch vocal, and Mike Nesmith on guitar and a couple of other musicians. And but again, just never got around to finishing and releasing. And when I heard that, and that song was called Good Times, and that was, I recommended it be the title track, and because I realized I'd be able to sing a duet with my friend Harry Nilsson from 50 years ago.
There's a good time coming on, I can feel it in my bones. Said a good time coming on, I can tell it won't be long.
And that sort of launched it. And then the producers, we got Adam Schlesinger involved from Fountains of Wayne, which is a wonderful choice the record company made. And then all of a sudden they put the word out, and all these people started submitting material. Ben Gibbard from Death Cab for Cutie, and Rivers Cuomo from Weezer, and Paul Weller and Noel Gallagher from Oasis, and Andy Partridge, XTC. They all, turns out, they were huge fans, and they started submitting material, and you know, it just the way it happens. All of a sudden, the way I look at it, the whole becomes greater than the sum of its parts, and you can't really reduce it in any scientific sense and sort of, you know, just take it apart and see what works. It doesn't work like that. It just all of a sudden a perfect storm sort of thing, and there you go. And then we had a top 20 album. It's so funny to think about it, because the equivalent would have been in 1966 when, you know, the show was on the air, and it was the Monkees and the Beatles and the Rolling Stones having albums, top 20 albums. The equivalent would have been from an act having a top 20 album from the year 1916. So weird to think of it like that, but that's the equivalent of what would have happened. Enrico Caruso or Eddie Cantor or somebody.
I'm really glad that you mentioned the title track and the fact that you got to sing with your friend Harry Nilsson. I'm wondering if you can describe a little bit what that felt like in the studio to sing along with your friend, who also, quite famously, has a spectacular voice.
Yeah, no kidding. It was interesting. I had to take a couple of breaks. I'll be honest. I got a little teary-eyed singing along with him. And I had to take a couple of breaks, but it was a very interesting, emotional, shall we say, experience.
In terms of emotion as well, I know that it has to have been an emotional situation to get back and make a Monkees album without Davy. Just tell me a little bit about, when you think about him these days, what do you think?
Well, you know, it's something that never goes away entirely. Even to this day, I'm on stage and kind of expecting him to, you know, I look over and expecting him to be there, because we performed a whole lot together, just the two of us over the years, in doing musicals and doing concerts and, you know, all kinds of stuff. And I don't know, it's hard to describe. It's like, you know, he was the closest thing to a brother that I could possibly have had. We had a lot in common over the years. We had families that grew up together. We'd both been in the business as kids, as child actors. And even from the get-go, right from the beginning of the auditions and everything for the Monkees, we had always been very close and very tight. And like I say, our families hung out together, and kids about the same age and all that. So it was, it's been, you know, I had my doubts after he passed. How were we going to go on the road? How were we going to do a show without Davy Jones? He sang, you know, I sang most of the leads of the big hits, but he definitely had done a couple himself, and was obviously a very integral, you know, part of the music and the show and everything. And you know, it's worked out. You know, we have found ways, Mike and Peter and I, we have found ways of putting a show together, and the fans, you know, still coming out to see us.
Music everywhere, velvet people, walking people, oh, laughter everywhere, instrumental.